Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. This video, we're going to take a look at the recent work that's been completed on my unplugged GT building project. If you're unfamiliar with this project, if you're new to the channel, thank you for joining me, and there is a playlist that is on my channel that shows the videos currently leading up to this project. I don't know what installment this is, maybe 4? But I am going to change this format slightly by not having an outro. I already shot, actually, the footage of the building itself, and I've been shooting videos all day, so if you've been following me throughout the month, depending on how I order these, you're going to notice I've got the same nice little red shirt on the whole time. That's why I thought I would try and front load all the shooting in one day, and then I can edit them throughout the month when I have some time. Because the editing actually takes a little bit more time even than the shooting of them. So we'll see how this works out. But it does mean I think I'm starting to feel a little punchy as the evening gets late here. So no outro, just an intro. We'll shake it up here a little bit. But anyway, lots to show you on the building, so hopefully you'll stay through to the end of it. Some more silver bullet work, little details that I've added to the building, and at the very end I include a little sort of philosophy on the thoughts on visual elements and structural elements. So maybe it's useful. Hopefully you'll find something there that is interesting. So I'll say good night, and let's go to the bench. So it's been a while since we've taken a look at the building, and I'm still tweaking a little bit with camera angles and depth of field, so hopefully this will be all right. Great opportunity to play with those things a little bit, but more about the building. So it's been a while, so I've done quite a few things, and I can't remember some of the things that I've shown you before, so if I repeat some things, forgive me. But I'll try to go in the order in which I have worked on the building. So the first thing I wanted to do was change the feet a little bit in the back here, and they were really too large. So what I did at the base, is I shaved these down, which is nice with the balsa foam because I could just take a blade in here and trim them down, and then redo the brickwork, and I've done a little extra work on them to bring in some of the weathered effects that match some of the other sections of the building. Let's see, and then, well, there are quite a few new things here, so I'll just run through them all, actually, I guess. I had the pipe done before, and somebody had mentioned putting in a bracket for it, so I did that, and that helped out a little bit, actually, and I had planned on doing that, but of course I hadn't had any parts shown in the previous video. I'm going to save the windows for a little bit here. I added the dormer to this side, and one of the things that I had asked people about a ways back, of course, was the filling material I could use to seal that gap. And I've been using Milliput, and let's see if I can give you a close-up of how I tried to create texture. Let's see here. Let's do it like that. So I did my best to try to bring some of that wood grain in, but the Milliput is, I wouldn't say it's tricky to use, but I'm still practicing with it, I guess. So getting these lines to match up with the dormer was a little bit difficult, but I think I did a pretty good job. The funny thing about that kind of work is I'm only going to really know for sure when I paint it to see how the seams match up. You can get a little sense before you paint it, but my eye doesn't pick it out very well. So we'll see how that goes. I mentioned before that I was going to put in some little pieces to hold, these dressing trim, over the wood, and then that would kind of break up these long lines, which I mentioned before. So I just hand cut those out. Take a quick look at those. And I used the nutter to make the rivets for it, and the nutter is on the docket for review. If If you're new to the channel and these videos, it's basically a punch, so you can punch out of a heavy gauge aluminum little tiny rivets, and then you can glue them in place. And it's got some flexibility and some problems, pros and cons, as with anything. Then before I show the jazzier stuff, then I put in nails for the wood, and I mentioned before that there were nails in the wood in the front of the building, and so I'll give you a quick shot of what the originals look like. So that's what they look like originally, and so what I tried to do was to give a similar feel. How come I don't have... you know what? The back has lots of nails. That's probably better. Give a similar feel. I used the tiniest styrene rod I had, drilled out little holes, and then pressed them in. Now, getting them to glue into the balsa foam was a little bit of a trick, because the balsa foam is very absorbent to adhesives, so your first drop actually just soaks in and doesn't really create a bond, and then you have to kind of reapply to get that to then bond to something else. So that's kind of what I had to do. I'm going to go in and file some of the ones that are standing a little too proud of the surface, but that would be very quick, very easy, so I'm not worried about that. I don't think I had added these by the last video, so I put in a couple of these skulls that I had cast from a mold I made from one of the other buildings, try to tie that all together. I don't think I showed this. A viewer suggested that I dress the top of this piece with roof shingles. And so what I did is I took the roof shingles that I made from this. I'm just trying to make sure I remember correctly. I want to say... No, I don't think it was this. In any case, they are the same shingles, I'm trying to remember where I got them from, that I used to do this section here. And that was a great little, you kind of get it from the side there, it was a great little finish fit for that piece. I liked how that came out. And then I decided that, last thing before we get to some of the smaller details, I had been worried about this gap in the past and what I was going to do to fill it with some detail. And a viewer, thank you once again to all my viewers, suggested maybe putting a plate over it like it had been damaged. So I scored the wall heavily to kind of make it look cracked, and then put a plate on top of that to give it, a quick repair look. And very easy to do, fills that space nicely, and works well thematically. So I was pretty happy about that. You know what? I'm going to lock this focus. I think I see it doing its little back and forth thing. Hopefully I lock it in the right spot. All right. So that was a great little fix. Rivet that in. And actually, I should probably mention it. All right, we're going to see if we can see these. The Nutter comes with hex bolts that you can punch out, as well as round rivets. And so I used a hex bolt head, and I'll tell you what, I'm not going to point out which are which, and if you can see the difference, then it's effective. And if you can't see the difference, then it's really not worth trying. So I'm going to leave that here. I'll take a look at it with you on the screen when I edit it, and we'll see whether those show up enough to make it worthwhile to switch between those two. Punches, that is. Let's see. I think I showed this before where I made this connection. I believe I did show that before. I threw another one of those little skull pieces up top there to just dress this gable. Somebody told me it's a gable. It was helpful. And then the window boxes. This is where I spent a good chunk of my time since doing most of the bulk work. And I wanted to do two things. Well, all right. I asked somebody about the windows and how I could fix them, because you know me, I complained about how they're not even. I got a great suggestion about boarding up the windows. Now, I can only do that at the end after I've painted them all, but it would be very easy to just slap, a couple boards across one of the windows and split them between the two, maybe hide the one that's the most deformed and bring that to look a little bit more uniform. That's a fantastic idea. I'm so grateful that somebody sent that to me, so I'm definitely going to be doing that. But it occurred to me sometime during that discussion that I could cut lattice for the windows using the silver bullet. So this was something I've never tried before. I found a great lattice pattern online. I cut it out of, I think it's 0.015 styrene. It was a little bit of a trick. I got it to cut it pretty well, and I think it really added a lot to them. So here's a close shot of that lattice work. I love it. It's alone, even if I did nothing else, it just helps those windows so much, and I really think they needed that help. For uniformity's sake here, you can see the other side, get a sense of what those look like. And so that helped with that, like I said, quite a bit. Made me a lot happier about them. Still, we're going to board up one or two of those, though. Then, what I wanted to do is add something to these side panels here. And so what I did is I went and I got a pattern of a griffin, trying to look for some Warhammer iconography. I found a griffin. It wasn't quite right, so I had to stretch the pattern a little bit to give it a better dimension to fit into this. Cut, this was all done on the silver bullet, and maybe it's best to just do the close-up for this rather than try to talk about it from the way back world there. All right, let's see here. I think that's in focus. A little tiny viewing window. So I cut the griffin out, but I had to cut it out and stack it because the styrene, I wanted it to sit more prominently, be a little bit more, have more relief, if you will. And so I couldn't do that with a single pass with a silver bullet and get this level of detail. So I ended up cutting a couple and then stacking them and gluing them together. And that really, I think, worked out really quite well. I was very happy about that. I really like, actually, how the griffin came out. It's not obvious it's a griffin, perhaps, but it's got enough of the flavor of it that it works pretty well for me. And then, of course, you can see the thickness of the panel that it's mounted on, and then a couple rivets to mount those in. So I did those on either side of the windows. I did them on the, all right, too many cameras here, too many angles. I did them on the front as well. I cut them all out. Then I started gluing them on, and lo and behold, I realized that it would have been so much nicer to have both griffins facing out rather than both griffins facing left. I'm not going to change it, but it was like, ooh, that would have been nice. I'd already glued them on. I was like, what? All I had to do was flip them around even. Hindsight, right? If this was for a customer, I'd be stripping that all off. But if it's for me, I'm going to let it ride. So really like that. I think that added a nice jazz to the windows, and I'm feeling much better about those boxes now than I was earlier. And I feel like that really, ties into the building with the lattice work and these windows. And then I put in the same lattice. I had to cut it way down to fit these windows. But I thought, why not? Because they looked blank, and I was like, am I going to paint those black? Or, what is going on here? So I threw those in to these windows here, and I think that really helped. Again, right? I'm trying to tie these things all together so the building has a general uniform feel. So that's all that was really done for the structural work. I say that's all. That was a bit, but the final sort of push was to then seal all the edges so you can see all of my filling work. This took, a little bit of time. Boy, I'm just not sure about how well I will have cleaned up these to bring them in line with this wood grain. So we're all going to see when they get painted. But I think it's going to be all right. At the minimum, I think we're going to be okay there. Me. And so that gives you a pretty good overview of all of the pieces that I've done since the last viewing. The final thing, which I said I was kind of holding as my my fun time, my fun time is, excuse me, is to do the chimney. Now this actually was a bit of a thinker for me because I want it to be proportional to this section, which is quite a bit smaller, right? And I don't want to have a giant chimney coming down because then it's like, where's all the space inside for people to hang out? So it's got to be a little smaller. I took a look at this chimney for a while and I thought about how it's got, you know, a very, let's see, I'll spin it around here, it's probably a little bit better. So you can see it's got a fairly irregular, right, profile. And in fact, if it was easy to mold it, probably you know they could have put in one in both axes, right? We got one axis, we got two, and so I wanted to capture that element. And of course, the bricks are varying in size, right? We've got some really small ones, we've got some pretty big ones, so I have some flexibility in that. And that was about as far as I got. So I started with some big chunks of balsa foam and then abandoned those and decided to go with a piece of balsa foam that's about this big. And I've started to score in the bricks. And once I started scoring them in, then I realized I really wanted more of that profile shifting. Did you just hear something? We'll find out on the tape. And then, so what I did is I went in with a needle file, basically, just for show and tell, you know, right? You can take a needle file, and this wasn't the exact one I used, and I sanded that down to bring it below grade for the other bricks, and then I'll be going in and re-striking these lines and then putting in the vertical strikes for the individual bricks. They're coming out a little smaller than these, but actually I like that because it's a little smaller of a chimney. So that's going to sort of end up here. Now I'll be cutting off the bottom, cutting off the top, so you got to use a little imagination there. And then I'll be doing a top piece for it, and I'm going to do a little routing again with using my Dremel to get some kind of a nice shape for the top of this, maybe one, maybe two. I haven't decided. And then I do think I'm going to have some kind of piping maybe come up and join the chimney, something that captures this flavor but isn't really looking like I'm trying to mimic it. So that's the idea at this point. That's the last section that really needs to be done. My little chimney here. And the nice thing about that, which I wasn't entirely thinking of along the way, but it is something I try to be conscious of in general with buildings to add interest. Actually, it can also be true for forests and terrain in general, right? Visual elements, is that we have a lot of planes of interest in this building, right? So when I put this here, let me make sure I'm looking at the camera and we got something that makes sense here. And I'll angle it. All right, how about that? Hard to hold and look. All right, forgive me. There we go. All right, I'm going to take it. So, you know, we've got these lines, we've got these lines, we've got lines, and having that variety really makes it look a lot more interesting. And as it rotates, and we'll see this maybe a little easier when I'm done because my hands won't be in the way holding on to this stuff, right? But when you take a look at it at an angle, right, you've got all of these lines that are adding interest to it. And that is really something that I've become aware of over the last year or two, is making sure that it's got that kind of variation, right? Even from here now, we've got this pipe and this chimney and these pillars, right? We've got a lot of vertical elements, but then we got the nice long line on the roof, and then of course the dormers punching out. So that really, I think, gives any kind of structure or element more interest, as long as you're not breaking the rules of the piece, right? Obviously, if this was a rock outcropping and all the grain of the cracks is going this way, right? You can't do some things with that because of the physics, you know. But with a building, of course, we have a lot more freedom to do that. And so, gosh, I didn't even think about it. But really, from the side, let me see if you can see that, right? Yeah. And then we have the mirroring, right? We have the angles here, and we have the angles here. And so, right, we're tying together the piece And I really think that is something that comes more naturally to the eye as you do more and more practice, but also is something to always try to be conscious of, especially when you're starting out. You know, I'm seeing some things right away when I'm working on it, like I don't like these lines. This was originally, right, a straight piece of wood. I had to cut that up. Somehow that has to get broken up. These little sort of hinge clasps help to snap. I don't know what I'm saying. It's late. I've been shooting videos all day. But it helps to, break up the top. The pillar here breaks up that bottom. This is going to be painted in stone, so it's going to set apart the wood. It's going to put some distance between these pieces, right? So that I'm kind of envisioning when I'm working on it. I didn't really think about, to be fair, this pipe and the chimney and this chimney, all bringing those elements up together. That just kind of happened maybe a little intuitively for me, but that's the kind of thing once I see it and I say, ooh, that's nice, you know? That's something we really want to make sure we incorporate in the future and be conscious of it. Well, there you go. There's a little philosophy, at least my philosophy, on structural terrain work, diorama type work, and it also gives you a good overview of all of the pieces that have been done. So where are we going to go from here? I'm going to finish this chimney, stick that on there, get that all sealed up, and then I'm going to be putting this building away. I'm not going to be painting it until I get all of the buildings done. I want to paint them all together so that they're all feeling uniform in their, in at least to me visually as I'm going through them. And quite frankly, I don't feel ready to paint them yet. And there's plenty of other structural work to do. So we're going to set this building aside. I will show you it quickly when the chimney is done, because I'll be showing you the next building and all of the work that will have been done on that one.